My name is Melba Murray. I'm 18 years old. On my birthday, my own parents woke me at 5 a.m., dragged me to the airport, and shoved a one-way ticket into my hand. My mother looked me dead in the eyes and said, "This is your gift, you worthless burden. Don't ever come back. We're finally free of you." They didn't hug me. They didn't even wait to see me walk inside. They just drove off laughing. For 16 years, they had told the world I was severely autistic, intellectually disabled, and barely human, all so they could steal $936,000 from the government, while I ate scraps and taught myself to read in secret. They thought throwing me away would save them. They were wrong. The ticket wasn't theirs. The woman waiting at baggage claim with my name wasn't a stranger. And what my parents discovered 3 weeks later, when federal agents kicked down their door, was that their perfect little scam had just become their worst nightmare. I was never broken. And now, I was finally going to speak. Before I take you back to where this nightmare really started, if you love stories about justice, family betrayal, and a girl who refused to stay broken, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and the current time in the comments. Let me know I'm not alone in this. Let me take you back to where this really started. November 2008. I was 9 months old. The economy had just collapsed. My parents, Brenda and Keith Holloway, lost their jobs within the same week. My mother worked at a mortgage company that went under. My father was laid off from a construction firm that couldn't pay its workers. They had a baby, a mortgage, and 3 months before foreclosure. I don't remember any of this, obviously, but I've seen the paperwork. I've read the timeline. I know exactly when they stopped seeing me as their daughter and started seeing me as revenue. It was sometime in December 2008, late at night. Keith was on the computer, searching for government assistance programs. He found something. SSI. Supplemental Security Income for Disabled Children. The website said families could receive monthly payments if their child had a severe disability requiring constant care. He did the math. SSI paid $914 a month. Oregon State Supplement added $183. If you became your child's official caregiver through the state's in-home supportive services program, that was another $1,850 monthly. Section 8 housing vouchers could cover $1,200 in rent. SNAP added $281 for food. Medicaid covered all medical costs. Total, $4,878 per month, $58,536 per year. If a child stayed on disability from age 2 to age 18, that was potentially over $1 million. There was just one problem. I wasn't disabled. I was a normal baby. I smiled. I babbled. I was hitting all my developmental milestones right on schedule. But my parents looked at me in my crib that night, and they made a choice. My mother said it out loud, according to the FBI recordings they'd later uncover. "She's just a baby. She can't tell anyone." They started doctor shopping in January 2010. I was almost 2 years old. They needed an official diagnosis from a licensed physician, something they could submit to Social Security to prove I was disabled enough to qualify for benefits. The first 3 doctors they saw refused. One pediatrician actually reported them to Child Protective Services for attempting to fabricate symptoms. The case was dismissed. My parents claimed they were just concerned, confused first-time parents. Then they found Dr. Philip Greaves. His office was in a strip mall in Gresham, Oregon, sandwiched between a nail salon and a check-cashing place. The waiting room had water-stained ceiling tiles and chairs with torn vinyl. There were no other patients. My mother carried me in. I was 2 years old, curious about everything, trying to grab the magazines on the side table. "What symptoms concern you?" Dr. Greaves asked. He didn't look at me. He looked at his paperwork. My mother had rehearsed this. "She doesn't respond to her name. No eye contact. She doesn't speak. She's very withdrawn. None of this was true, but I was too. I couldn't exactly defend myself. Dr. Greaves spent maybe 10 minutes in the room with us. He didn't do any cognitive tests. He didn't observe me playing. He didn't ask to see developmental records from my previous pediatrician. He just asked one question. Can you pay the consultation fee today? $500, cash only. My father handed him $500 bills. Dr. Greaves wrote the diagnosis on the spot. Autism spectrum disorder, severe. Intellectual disability, profound. Patient requires 24-hour supervision and is unable to perform basic self-care tasks. I reached for a picture book on his desk while he was writing. My mother slapped my hand down and whispered, "Stop it." That diagnosis, signed by Dr. Philip Greaves on March 15, 2010, became the foundation of a 16-year fraud. And here's something you should know. Dr. Greaves lost his medical license in 2019. The Oregon Medical Board revoked it permanently after discovering he'd falsified 83 disability diagnoses between 2008 and 2018, taking cash payments from families who wanted to qualify for government benefits. I was one of 83 children, but by the time his license was revoked, my parents had already collected 9 years of payments. And nobody thought to go back and check if all those diagnoses he'd made were legitimate. Nobody except my grandfather. But I'll get to him later. The applications went out in April 2010. My parents applied for everything: SSI, state supplements, caregiver payments, housing assistance, food stamps, Medicaid. Every form asked the same questions. Does your child have a documented disability? Can your child speak? Can your child dress themselves? Can your child recognize family members? My parents checked no to everything. They attached Dr. Greaves's diagnosis letter. They wrote statements about how difficult it was to care for me, how I required constant supervision, how I'd never be able to function independently. The approvals came in June and July, one letter after another, stamped approved in red ink. On July 15, 2010, the first deposit hit their bank account. $4,878. That night, they went out to dinner. Expensive restaurant in downtown Portland. Steaks, wine, dessert. The receipt was $287.50. I stayed home with a neighbor eating leftover baby food from a donation bin. My father raised his wine glass across the table. "To our special little girl," he said. My mother laughed, the gift that keeps on giving. That first month, they spent the entire payment on themselves. New clothes for my mother, a PlayStation for my father, meals out, a weekend trip to the coast. I was still sleeping in a second-hand crib. My clothes came from Goodwill. My formula came from the food bank. This is how it started. And this is how it would continue for the next 16 years. By the time I was 5 years old, I understood that something was different about me. Not different in the way my parents told other people. Not disabled, not broken. Different in the way I had to hide. I wasn't allowed to leave the house except for doctor visits. No preschool. My mother told the neighbors I was too disruptive for other children, that I had severe autism and loud noises triggered me. None of it was true, but the neighbors believed her because why would a mother lie about her own child? I spent my days alone in my room. The door had a deadbolt lock on the outside. My mother would lock it when she went out, sometimes for hours. I learned to be quiet. I learned to entertain myself. I watched a lot of TV. That was allowed, because disabled children could watch TV. I watched PBS Kids, educational shows, anything that was on. And that's how I started learning. Not from school, not from my parents, from television. I learned the alphabet from Sesame Street when I was 4. I learned to count from commercials. By the time I was 6, I could read. My parents didn't know. I made sure they didn't know. Because once a year, A social worker would come to our house. It was required by the state. They had to verify that I was actually disabled, that my parents were actually caring for me, that the money was being used appropriately. The visits always happened the same way. The night before, my mother would tell me the rules. Tomorrow, a woman is coming to talk to you. You don't talk back. You don't look at her. You don't respond when she says your name. If you do any of those things, they'll take you away and put you in an institution where they lock children in cages. Do you understand? I was 6 years old. I understood. The morning of the visit, exactly 1 hour before the social worker arrived, my mother would give me 2 pills. Children's Benadryl. The dosage was higher than recommended for my age. It made me drowsy, slow to respond, my eyelids heavy. Then the social worker would come. She'd sit across from me at the kitchen table and ask questions. Melba, can you tell me your name? I'd stare at the table, drugged and coached into silence. How old are you, Melba? Nothing. My mother would jump in. She's having a nonverbal day. This is normal for her. She has good days and bad days. The social worker would write notes. She'd look around the house. Clean enough, no obvious signs of neglect. She'd thank my parents for their time. She'd leave. My mother kept the Benadryl bottle hidden in the kitchen pantry, marked in Sharpie. Eval day only, 16 times, once a year from 2010 to 2025. 16 times they drugged me so I'd appear disabled enough to keep the checks coming. After the social worker left, the sedative would wear off. I'd go back to my room. I'd pull out the books I'd hidden under the loose floorboard, old textbooks I'd found in the garage during one of the rare moments I was allowed out of my room. Charlotte's Web. Where the Red Fern Grows. A water-damaged copy of Pre-Algebra Basics from 1987. I taught myself to read at night, after my parents went to bed. I'd wait until I heard their bedroom door close, wait another hour to make sure they were asleep. Then I'd pull up the floorboard and open the books by the light coming under my door. I learned math from TV commercials. 30% off means multiply by 0.7. I'd practice in my head. I learned Spanish from telenovelas on Univision. I didn't understand most of it at first, but the closed captions were in Spanish, and I'd sound out the words, match them to what the actors were saying. By the time I was 9, I could read at a 6th grade level. I could do basic algebra. I could understand conversational Spanish, and I never told anyone, because the one time I slipped, the one time I accidentally responded to a Spanish phrase on TV, saying the next line out loud, my father whipped around and stared at me like I'd just committed a crime. I froze, pretended it was just a noise. Random babbling. He went back to his beer. But I learned my lesson. I learned to be more careful. I learned that being smart was dangerous. So I hid it. For years, I hid it. When I was 10 years old, I fell down the stairs. Our house was old, the steps uneven and poorly maintained. My parents didn't spend money on repairs. They spent it on themselves. The banister was loose. I grabbed it for support coming down one morning, and it gave way. I fell hard, landing on my left arm. I heard the crack before I felt the pain. My mother drove me to the emergency room. The X-ray showed a displaced fracture of the humerus, the upper arm bone. It was broken clean through, the two ends separated. The ER doctor was clear. She needs surgery. We'll need to insert pins and plates to hold the bone in alignment while it heals. Without surgery, the bone will heal incorrectly, and she'll have permanent deformity. My mother asked the only question she cared about. How much does it cost? The surgery itself is about $18,500, the doctor said. But your daughter is on Medicaid, correct? It's fully covered. There's no cost to you. My mother said, no surgery. The doctor looked confused. Mrs. Holloway, I'm not sure you understand. This is a serious fracture. If we don't operate, I understand perfectly. No surgery. We'll manage with a cast. But Medicaid will cover the full cost. There's no financial barrier here. I said no. My mother signed the against medical advice form and took me home. I didn't understand then. I was 10 years old, my arm was screaming, and my mother had just refused free surgery that would fix it. It wasn't until years later, reading the FBI evidence files, that I understood why. My father had said it on the phone that same week, talking to my mother from the hallway outside my room. The FBI had it on tape. If they operate, they'll see her bones are healing normally. Healthy kid bones. Then they'll start questioning the disability. We can't risk it. Better to let it heal wrong than get caught. So my arm healed wrong. Over the next 8 weeks, the bone fused back together at an angle. My left arm is still crooked. I can't fully extend it. It aches when it rains. I lived with that pain for 8 years because the truth was more dangerous to my parents than my suffering. And that same month, June 2018, the month they denied my surgery, they flew to Paris. I know because I saw the Facebook photos later. My mother posted them. The Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, champagne on a balcony overlooking the Seine. The caption said, "Living our best life." The bank records show a withdrawal of $8,200 for the trip. While I was home, arm crooked and aching, eating canned soup and watching through the window as neighborhood kids played outside. That was the moment I realized the truth. I wasn't their daughter. I was their paycheck. When I was 12 years old, I found a piece of paper in the trash. It was an annual review form from Social Security, coffee-stained and crumpled. My mother had thrown it away after filling it out, and I'd been searching the kitchen trash for something. I don't even remember what. The form listed everything. Monthly benefit for care of disabled minor, $914. Caregiver payment, $1,850. Purpose: medical care and daily living support. There was a handwritten note at the bottom in my father's handwriting. Keep depositing, don't fuck this up. I stared at that number. $914 plus $1,850. Every month. For years. I did the math in my head. 12 years old, and I'd already taught myself enough math to calculate. 12 years times 12 months times $4,878 equals over $700,000. $700,000 meant for my care. And I was wearing a shirt with holes in it that I'd gotten from a donation bin 3 years earlier. I was eating expired canned soup. I had a broken arm that healed wrong because they wouldn't let doctors operate. None of that money was for me. That's when I started keeping a journal. I hid it in the same floorboard with the books. I wrote down dates, events, things they said, times they drugged me before social worker visits. I titled the first page, Evidence. I didn't know what I'd ever do with it. I just knew I needed to document it. Because someday, someone might ask. And I wanted to have proof. I was 12 years old and I was already building a case against my own parents. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't know for years, was that someone else was building a case too. My grandfather, Arthur Pennington. He's my mother's father. A retired police officer from Portland. In 2010, when I was 2 years old and my parents first got the disability diagnosis, Arthur tried to visit me. My mother refused. "Melba's too sick for visitors," she told him. "She has severe autism. Strangers stress her out." Arthur didn't buy it. He's a cop. Even retired, you don't lose the instinct for when someone's lying. But he didn't push it. He figured he'd give them space, try again in a few months. When he tried again in 2011, my mother filed a restraining order. The petition said, "Father Arthur Pennington is harassing family during medical crisis. Daughter has severe autism and his unannounced visits cause extreme distress to child. Request no contact order." The judge granted it. Arthur was ordered to stay 500 feet away from our house and have no contact with me. He tried to fight it. In 2012, he filed for grandparent visitation rights in Oregon Family Court. He hired a lawyer. He brought evidence that he'd been a loving grandfather before the diagnosis, that there was no reason to cut him off, except that he was asking questions my mother didn't want to answer. My mother presented Dr. Greaves's diagnosis in court: severe autism, intellectual disability. The doctor's recommendation: grandparent visits medically contraindicated due to patient's severe condition. The judge ruled in my mother's favor. Parents have constitutional rights to make medical decisions for their children. Arthur's petition was denied. He walked out of that courthouse in August 2013, and his lawyer told him, "I'm sorry, Arthur. That's it. There's nothing more we can do legally." Arthur looked at him and said, "Then I'll find another way." He hired a private investigator. It's legal to surveil someone from public spaces, to document their movements, to track their spending if you have the right tools. Arthur couldn't visit me, couldn't contact me, couldn't even send me a birthday card without violating the restraining order, but he could watch. From a distance. For 10 years. The PI's reports started coming in 2014. At first, they were basic. Subjects observed leaving residence, returning with shopping bags, no sign of medical equipment or therapy visits. Then they got more detailed. 2015. Subjects purchased BMW 5 Series, $54,000 cash payment, license plate tracked to multiple wine country trips, luxury hotels. 2016. Surveillance photos show subjects at Portland International Airport departing for Europe. Flight records indicate 2 weeks in France and Italy. Target minor not observed outside residence in 14 months of surveillance. 2017. Bank records obtained through credit monitoring show monthly deposits of $4,878 correlating with SSI payment schedule. Withdrawals show luxury spending, restaurants, travel, electronics. No withdrawals correlating to medical care, therapy, or special education services. Year after year, the evidence piled up. 847 pages of surveillance reports, 3 filing cabinets full. And then, in 2019, something major happened. Dr. Philip Greaves, the doctor who diagnosed me, lost his medical license. The Oregon Medical Board revoked it permanently. The investigation found that Greaves had been running a disability diagnosis mill since 2008, taking cash payments from families who wanted to qualify for SSI benefits. 83 children diagnosed with severe autism or intellectual disability. 83 families collecting government checks. The board published a list of all the cases. My name was on it. Arthur saw the news. He took the medical board's report to a lawyer. "I have evidence of fraud," he said. 10 years of bank records showing they're spending the money on themselves. Now I have proof the diagnosis was fake from the start. What can we do? The lawyer reviewed everything. Then he said, "You need the child's testimony. She's still a minor, still under their control. We wait until she's 18. Then we move." So Arthur waited. He kept gathering evidence. He kept watching. And he never sent another birthday card because he knew they'd just send it back. Instead, he wrote them anyway. Every birthday, every Christmas. He wrote the cards, addressed them to me, and put them in a box in his study. 64 cards, one for every occasion from 2010 to 2024. He was waiting for me to turn 18. In May 2024, Arthur contacted the FBI. Not the local police. He'd been a Portland cop himself, and he knew how these things worked. SSI fraud is a federal crime. He needed federal agents. He walked into the FBI's Portland field office with 3 filing cabinets full of evidence. Agent Rebecca Stoltz was assigned to the case. She spent 2 weeks reviewing everything Arthur had compiled. 10 years of surveillance reports, bank statements showing $936,000 in deposits, Dr. Greaves's medical license revocation, proof that I'd never received any of the services those benefits were supposed to pay for. Mr. Pennington, she told him, this is one of the most comprehensive fraud cases I've ever seen handed to us ready-made. We'll open an investigation immediately. How long until you can get her out? Arthur asked. Stoltz checked the calendar. She turns 18 in 9 months. February 2026. We build the case until then. The moment she's legally an adult, we move. What if they hurt her before then? We'll be watching, Stoltz said. Every day. And they were. Starting in January 2025, the FBI got a wiretap warrant. They tapped my parents' phones, their landline, installed listening devices in their car. For 13 months, they recorded everything. The letter came in November 2024. I didn't see it at first. My mother opened it at the kitchen table and I watched her face go pale. What is it? My father asked. She read out loud, her voice shaking. Mandatory re-evaluation required for all SSI recipients turning 18. Melba Murray, date of birth, February 14, 2008, must undergo comprehensive evaluation by independent medical examiner between January 15, 2026 and March 15, 2026. She kept reading. Recipient will be tested by licensed psychologists not previously involved in case. Testing includes IQ assessment, adaptive functioning evaluation, language proficiency testing. Failure to comply results in immediate termination of benefits and potential fraud investigation. My father grabbed the letter. Read it twice. Then crumpled it in his fist. Fuck! Fuck! I'd never seen him that scared. Over the next few weeks, I heard them arguing late at night. I'd press my ear to my bedroom door and listen. If she takes those tests? I know. Real doctors. Real tests. They'll know she's not disabled. I know. We're looking at federal prison. We're looking at paying back almost $1 million. My mother's voice, desperate. So we don't let her take the test. It's mandatory. The letter says, then we make sure she's not here to take it. That's when I knew they were going to do something. I didn't know what, but I knew it was coming. I wrote in my journal that night, February 12, 2026, 2 days before my 18th birthday. She called me nothing. I think they're going to do something. I'm scared. The ticket arrived February 10th. I didn't see them open it. I only heard my father's voice from the kitchen. What the hell? A plane ticket? My mother's voice. One way to Charleston, South Carolina, February 14th. Who would send this? A long pause. Then my father. I don't care who sent it. We're using it. This is perfect. We put her on that plane, report her as a runaway, dodge the evaluation. What if she tells someone? Who's she gonna tell? She's been locked in this house for 16 years. She doesn't even know how to talk to people. I'd heard enough. I went back to my room and stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. They were sending me away. On my 18th birthday, February 14th, 2026. 5 a.m. My mother shook me awake. No, good morning. No happy birthday, just get up, get dressed. You have 15 minutes. I was groggy, confused. What's happening? She threw a backpack at me. You're leaving. Pack whatever fits in this. Leaving where? Does it matter? I packed in a daze, one change of clothes, toothbrush, my journal. I grabbed it from under the floorboard and shoved it deep in the bag where they wouldn't see it. My parents were already in the car, engine running. I climbed into the back seat. We drove in complete silence. It was still dark out. The dashboard clock said 5:47 a.m. I tried asking questions. Can someone please tell me what's happening? Is this about the evaluation? I can take it. I want to take it. My father's voice cut through the darkness. Shut up. You don't get to want things. I saw the sign. Portland International Airport, 3 miles. They were taking me to the airport. On my birthday. My father parked at Terminal 1, departure's curb. Engine still running. My mother turned around in her seat. She looked me dead in the eyes. This is your gift, you worthless burden. Don't ever come back. We're finally free of you. She shoved a boarding pass and the backpack into my hands. I couldn't breathe. Mom, get out. I opened the door, stood on the curb. The backpack felt impossibly heavy. My mother rolled down her window one last time. If you contact us, we'll call the police and report you as mentally unstable. No one will believe you. Then they drove away, and I heard them. I heard them laughing. My own parents, driving away from the airport curb, laughing, on my 18th birthday. I stood there for I don't know how long. Cars honked. People rushed past me with suitcases. The automatic doors kept opening and closing. I looked at the boarding pass in my hand. Flight 1847 to Charleston, South Carolina, departs 6:30 a.m., seat 17C. I'd never heard of Charleston. I had no idea where I was going or why. But I walked into the airport anyway, because what choice did I have? I found gate B7, sat down in one of those hard plastic chairs. Numb. The departure board said, Flight 1847, CHS. On time. Boarding. I looked around. Families traveling together, couples holding hands, a kid my age with headphones, parents checking his ticket, making sure he had everything. I had a backpack, a boarding pass I didn't ask for, and the sound of my parents laughing still ringing in my ears. The gate agent called for boarding. I stood up, legs shaking, and got in line. I found seat 17C, window seat. I'd never been on a plane before. A flight attendant stopped by my row. Sweetie, are you okay? You're traveling alone? I'm fine, I said. I wasn't fine. Where's home? I looked out the window at the Portland skyline getting smaller as we taxied to the runway. I don't have one anymore. The flight had a connection in Dallas. 2-hour layover, then another flight to Charleston. I sat in the Dallas airport and tried to process what had just happened. My parents had woken me before dawn on my 18th birthday, driven me to an airport, and abandoned me with a one-way ticket to a city I'd never heard of. They'd called me a worthless burden. They'd told me never to come back. They'd laughed. For 16 years, they'd told the world I was severely disabled. They'd locked me in a room. They'd drugged me before evaluations. They'd denied me surgery when I broke my arm. And now they'd thrown me away. I didn't cry. I was too shocked to cry. I just sat there in Terminal C at Dallas-Fort Worth, watching planes take off, wondering if I was actually disabled like they'd always said, wondering if there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made me unlovable. The announcement came for my connecting flight. I boarded, found my seat. When the pilot announced our descent into Charleston, I looked out the window and saw coastline, marsh, a small historic town in the distance. I whispered to my reflection in the glass, "What's in Charleston?" I walked to baggage claim at Charleston Airport at 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time. And I saw her, an older woman, early 60s, professional-looking, holding a white cardboard sign with black marker. Melba Murray. My heart stopped. She saw me staring, smiled kindly, walked toward me. Melba? Her voice was gentle. I'm Dr. Helen Cartwright. Your grandfather sent me to bring you home. I couldn't speak, couldn't process. I don't have a grandfather. You do, she said. His name is Arthur Pennington, and he's been searching for you for 14 years. Everything I thought I knew broke apart in that moment. Why would my parents send me to my grandfather? Dr. Cartwright's expression was careful, kind. They didn't. He sent the ticket. Come with me. I'll explain in the car. Dr. Cartwright drove south on Highway 17, Spanish moss hanging from oak trees, marsh grass blowing in the wind, everything green and wet and completely foreign. She explained slowly, carefully, like she was handling something fragile. Your grandfather is Arthur Pennington. He's your mother's father. He's 76 years old, a retired police officer from Portland. In 2010, when you were 2, your parents cut him off completely. They filed a restraining order. He hasn't been allowed to see you or contact you for 14 years. Why? Because he started asking questions they didn't want to answer. She showed me a photo on her phone. An older man holding a baby. The baby was wearing a pink onesie. The man was smiling. That's you, Dr. Cartwright said. And that's your grandfather. 2008, before they cut him off. I stared at the photo. I didn't remember him. I didn't remember anything before the locked room and the isolation. There's something you need to know about your diagnosis, Dr. Cartwright said quietly. It wasn't real. We pulled up to a small house in Beaufort, South Carolina. Population 13,000. A historic coastal town I'd never heard of. The house had a front porch, rocking chairs, a marsh view in the back. Everything my parents' house in Oregon wasn't. A man was waiting on the porch. Tall, weathered, white hair, kind eyes that looked like they'd cried recently. I got out of the car slowly. Melba. His voice broke on my name. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I've waited so long to say that to you. You're my grandfather. I'm your mother's father, and I've never stopped looking for you. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to feel. He didn't rush me. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, giving me space. You must be starving, he said finally. When's the last time you ate? I tried to remember. Yesterday morning. Something flickered across his face. Anger, but not at me, at my parents. But his voice stayed gentle. Come inside. The living room had a banner hanging from the ceiling. Handmade, construction paper letters. Happy 18th birthday, Melba. I almost cried then. Almost. Arthur made me a sandwich. Real food. Turkey, cheese, lettuce, tomato. I ate it so fast I barely tasted it, and he made me another one without comment. Dr. Cartwright sat across from me. When I finished eating, she spoke. Melba, I'm a psychiatrist. I specialize in cases involving fraudulent disability diagnoses. Your grandfather contacted me 6 months ago because he believed your autism diagnosis was fake. Was it? My voice came out smaller than I wanted. Yes. She pulled out a document. The doctor who diagnosed you in 2010 was Philip Greaves. His medical license was permanently revoked by the Oregon Medical Board in 2019. He was convicted of falsifying disability diagnoses in exchange for cash payments. 83 children. You were one of them. She slid the document across the table. Official letterhead. Oregon Medical Board. License revoked. Fraud. I read it twice, 3 times. So I'm not... I couldn't finish the sentence. You're not disabled, Dr. Cartwright said. You never were. Arthur opened a box, cardboard, worn at the edges, labeled For Melba in his handwriting. I send you cards, he said. Every birthday, every Christmas, every Easter. I wanted you to know someone loved you. He lifted the lid. Inside were envelopes, dozens of them, all stamped in red ink. Return to sender. Your mother sent them all back, he said. I saved them. I thought maybe someday. I reached for one. My 10th birthday, March 2018. I opened it. The card had a picture of a rainbow on the front. Inside, in careful handwriting, Happy 10th birthday, Melba. I'm still here. I haven't given up. I'll never stop looking for you. Love, Grandpa Arthur. That's when I cried. For the first time that day, I cried. Because someone had been looking for me. Someone had tried. Someone had loved me the whole time I thought I was alone. Arthur sat next to me, didn't touch me, just sat there while I cried over a birthday card from 8 years ago. You tried to find me, I said through tears. Every single day for 14 years. Over the next few days, Arthur showed me everything. The file cabinets in his converted garage office, 3 of them labeled Melba, Evidence, 2014 to 2024. 847 pages of private investigator reports. Photos of my parents at airports, at restaurants, loading luggage into their BMW bank statements showing deposits of $4,878 every single month for 16 years. He showed me the spreadsheet he'd built. Every deposit, every withdrawal, where the money went. $936,000 total received from 2010 to 2026. On one side of the spreadsheet, their spending. BMW, $54,000. European trips, $87,000 total. Electronics, jewelry, furniture, restaurants. On the other side, my expenses. $63,400 in 16 years. That's $330 per month. For food, clothes, and basic necessities. 6.8% of the money went to me. The rest went to them. Arthur showed me another timeline. Months when they'd denied me medical care, right next to months when they'd taken luxury vacations. June 2018. My arm surgery denied. Same month. Paris trip, $8,200. October 2020. I had pneumonia. My mother said we couldn't afford to see a doctor. Same month. They bought a new 65-inch TV, $2,400. The evidence was irrefutable. I couldn't get you out legally, Arthur said on the 3rd day. I tried. I filed for visitation rights in 2012. The court sided with your parents. I was blocked. So what did you do? I went to the FBI. He showed me the case file. FBI Portland Field Office. Case number 2024-PDX-SSA-2847. Classification, SSI fraud, child exploitation. Agent assigned, Rebecca Stoltz. I contacted them in May 2024. Gave them everything I had. They opened a federal investigation. How long have they been watching? 13 months. He pulled out a USB drive. The FBI got a wiretap warrant in January 2025. They've been recording your parents' phone calls, conversations in their car, everything. He plugged the USB into his laptop, opened an audio file. My father's voice came through the speakers. If she takes that evaluation, we're fucked. Real doctors, real tests. They'll see she's not disabled. We're looking at federal prison. My mother's voice. So we don't let her take it. It's mandatory. Then we make sure she's not here to take it. Arthur stopped the recording. That was January 15th, 2025. The FBI knew they were planning something. We just had to wait until you turned 18. Why 18? Because at 17, you were a minor under their legal control. We couldn't move without their permission. But at 18, you're an adult. You can testify. You can choose to press charges. He opened another file. The FBI coordinated with me. We bought the plane ticket and mailed it to your parents anonymously. We knew they'd use it. We knew they'd put you on a plane rather than let you take the evaluation. I stared at him. So when they drove me to the airport, they were sending you directly to me. They just didn't know it. Arthur showed me one more thing. My backpack. The one I'd packed in 15 minutes that morning. He opened it carefully, showed me the lining. There was a small device sewn inside, about the size of a quarter. GPS tracker, he said. The FBI put it in before we sent the ticket. We tracked you from Portland to Dallas to Charleston. We knew exactly where you were every second. I thought I'd been alone, abandoned, thrown away. But I'd been watched, protected, the whole time. Your parents think you disappeared, Arthur said. They think you ran away. They have no idea where you are. And in about 4 days, federal agents are going to arrest them. On February 21st, Dr. Cartwright took me to the Medical University of South Carolina for testing. Real testing. The kind my parents had avoided for 16 years. We drove to Charleston in the morning. Dr. Cartwright explained what would happen. I'm going to administer a comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation, IQ testing, language assessment, adaptive functioning, educational achievement. It'll take about 2 days. After that, I'll write an official report that we can submit to the FBI and Social Security. We walked into the testing room. Clinical but comfortable. A clock on the wall. Pencils laid out on the desk. Dr. Cartwright sat across from me. Melba, I want you to understand something. There are no wrong answers here. No one will punish you for being smart. For 16 years, you've had to hide your intelligence. You don't have to hide anymore. I was trembling. I don't know if I can do this. I know, but I'm going to ask you to try. Can you do that? I nodded. She handed me the first test booklet. Show me what you know. The IQ test took 3 hours. Questions about patterns, logic, vocabulary, math, spatial reasoning. I'd never taken a test like this before. I'd never taken any test. I'd never been to school. But I'd taught myself. 16 years of books hidden under floorboards, of learning from TV, of solving math problems in my head while I stared at the ceiling. When I finished, Dr. Cartwright collected the test booklet. She reviewed it, and her eyes widened. Melba, she looked up at me. This is remarkable. The next day was language testing, reading comprehension, writing samples, oral proficiency in English, Spanish, and French. Dr. Cartwright asked me to explain how I'd learned Spanish. Telenovelas, I said. They had Spanish subtitles. I learned to read the words first, then match them to what the actors were saying. I can understand it pretty well. I've just never had anyone to practice speaking with. And French? Old textbooks. I found them in the garage. I can read French better than I can speak it. She asked me to read a passage in French, then in Spanish. Then she asked comprehension questions. When we finished, she sat back. You taught yourself 3 languages while locked in a room with almost no resources. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. But it felt like a revelation. February 24th. Results day. Dr. Cartwright met with me and Arthur in her office. She had a thick folder in front of her. I've completed the neuropsychological evaluation, she said. Let me read you the summary. She opened the report. IQ full-scale score, 138, placing subject in the 99.6th percentile. This score indicates very superior intellectual functioning. Subject demonstrates exceptional verbal comprehension, superior working memory, and high processing speed. She looked up at me. Melba, you're not just normal, you're exceptionally intelligent. She kept reading. Language proficiency, native fluency in English, B2 level, upper intermediate, in Spanish, with strong conversational ability, B1 level, intermediate, in French, with excellent reading comprehension but limited speaking practice due to lack of exposure. Reading achievement, college freshman level, despite no formal education. Diagnosis, she paused. No evidence of autism spectrum disorder. No evidence of intellectual disability. Subject is intellectually gifted with strong autodidactic ability. However, subject shows signs of complex PTSD from prolonged developmental trauma, social isolation, and psychological abuse. She closed the folder. The diagnosis from Philip Greaves in 2010 is determined to be completely fraudulent with no medical basis. I'd known it for days, but hearing it officially, Reading it in a medical report signed and stamped by a real doctor made it real. I wasn't broken. I never was. February 25th. FBI Charleston Field Office. Agent Rebecca Stoltz flew in from Portland. She met me in a conference room with recording equipment and a court reporter. "Miss Murray," she said, "I'm going to take your formal sworn statement. This is called a deposition. Everything you say will be recorded and transcribed. This testimony will be used in the federal case against your parents. Do you understand?" "Yes." She turned on the recorder. The court reporter's fingers moved across the keyboard. "For the record, please state your full name and date of birth." "Melba Murray, February 14th, 2008. And then she asked me questions. For 4 hours, she asked me questions. "How many times did your parents give you sedatives before social worker evaluations?" 16 times, once a year from 2010 through 2025. Always children's Benadryl, sometimes 2 pills. "Did you ever believe you were actually disabled?" "When I was young, yes. They told me I was broken. I believed them. By age 12, I knew they were lying, but I was too scared to tell anyone." "Why were you scared?" "My mother told me that if anyone found out I wasn't disabled, they'd put me in an institution where they lock children in cages." I was 8 years old. I believed her. Describe February 14th, 2026. "They woke me at 5 a.m. My mother said, 'This is your gift, you worthless burden. Don't ever come back. We're finally free of you.' They drove away laughing. I stood on the curb at the airport alone. It was my 18th birthday. By the end, the transcript was 87 pages long. I signed every page. Agent Stoltz closed the folder. This is one of the most comprehensive victim testimonies I've seen in 20 years. We have everything we need. Arrest warrants will be executed in 72 hours. February 26th, 4:30 p.m. Arthur's phone rang. Caller ID, Brenda Holloway. He looked at Agent Stoltz, who'd stayed in Beaufort for exactly this reason. She nodded. He answered on speaker, recording device active. "Hello, Brenda." My mother's voice came through, panicked and fake concerned at the same time. "Dad? Oh, thank God you answered. Is Melba with you?" "Yes." "Oh, thank God." Crying now. "We've been so worried. She ran away on her birthday. We didn't know where she went. We've been calling hospitals, police stations." Arthur's voice was cold. "Cut the shit, Brenda. I know what you did." Silence. "What are you talking about? We're her parents. We love her. You drove her to the airport and told her she was a worthless burden. I have it on tape." More silence. "Dad, I don't know what she told you, but she's confused. She has severe autism. She doesn't understand. She has an IQ of 138. She's fluent in 3 languages. She was never disabled, Brenda. You and Keith have been committing federal fraud for 16 years, and the FBI knows everything." The line went dead. Agent Stoltz looked at Arthur. "They'll be here within 24 hours. They're going to try to get to her before we arrest them." She was right. February 27th, 11:15 a.m. A car pulled up to Arthur's house. Oregon plates. My parents had driven straight through, 6.5 hours from Hillsboro, Oregon to Beaufort, South Carolina. I watched from the window as they got out. My mother had clearly been crying. My father looked exhausted and desperate. Arthur opened the door before they could knock. "Hello, Brenda." "Keith." My mother pushed past him, spotted me in the living room, rushed toward me. "Oh, sweetheart." She tried to hug me. I stood there rigid. Didn't hug back. She pulled away, wiping fake tears. "We've been so worried. We shouldn't have left you at the airport like that. We were scared about the evaluation, scared about changes. But we're here now. We want to bring you home. This is my home now." My father stepped forward. Don't be ridiculous. You belong with your family. He pulled papers from a manila envelope. We just need you to sign something. Simple formality. Says you weren't mistreated, just a misunderstanding. Then we can all move forward. Arthur walked over and took the papers from Keith's hand. Read them. Laughed bitterly. Mutual release and waiver of claims. He read out loud. Releaser agrees to waive all claims, civil or criminal, related to care provided during minority, agrees not to participate in any investigation or legal proceeding, agrees to confidentiality regarding family matters. He looked up at Keith. You want her to sign away her right to tell the truth for $100,000? You stole $936,000 from her. My mother's voice turned sharp. It's a generous offer, Melba. You could start fresh. Go to college. We just need closure. I looked at the document. 14 pages. Highlighted signature lines. Then I looked at my mother. You called me a worthless burden. You laughed when you drove away. You spent $936,000 meant for my care on yourselves, while I ate scraps and lived with a broken arm for 8 years. You want me to sign this and pretend it was all a misunderstanding? I paused. No. My father's face darkened. You ungrateful little... I'm not signing, I said, cutting him off. I'm not going back to Oregon, and I'm testifying against you in federal court. I stood up. You can leave now. My mother started screaming. You'll regret this. When they put us in prison, you'll have no one. You'll be all alone. I looked at her. Calm, clear. I'd rather be alone than be your check. They left. Arthur closed the door behind them. Agent Stoltz came out from the back room, where she'd been listening to everything. We got it all, she said. Every word. That was witness tampering and intimidation. 2 more federal charges. She made a phone call. Execute the warrants, tomorrow morning, February 28th, 6 a.m. My parents were staying at a Motel 6 in Beaufort. They'd planned to stay another day, try to convince me again. They didn't get the chance. FBI agents knocked on the door of room 217 at exactly 6 a.m. FBI, open the door. My father opened it, half-dressed, confused. Agent Stoltz read them their rights. Keith Holloway and Brenda Holloway, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit federal benefits fraud, child exploitation, embezzlement of government funds, and witness tampering. Handcuffs. Miranda warnings. My mother screaming the whole way to the car. This is a mistake. Our daughter is lying. Agent Stoltz's voice was flat. Your daughter is testifying. March 3rd, 2026. Federal Courthouse, Charleston. I sat in the gallery with Arthur and Dr. Cartwright. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, disability rights advocates, social workers, people who'd heard about the case and wanted to see justice. My parents sat at the defense table in orange jumpsuits, public defenders on either side. Judge Patricia Hendricks entered. Everyone stood. The defendants are charged with Count 1, conspiracy to commit federal benefits fraud under Title 16 of the Social Security Act. Count 2, child exploitation. Count 3, embezzlement of government funds totaling $936,000. Count 4, witness tampering. How do the defendants plead? Their lawyer stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. That was standard at an arraignment, but it didn't last long. The prosecutor presented an overview of the evidence for the bail hearing. Bank records, surveillance photos, FBI wiretap recordings, Dr. Cartwright's evaluation, my 87-page deposition. 6 evidence boxes wheeled into the courtroom, labeled USA versus Holloway, Exhibits 1 to 186. The prosecutor's voice was steady and damning. Your Honor, these defendants systematically defrauded the federal government for 16 years by faking their daughter's disability. They received $936,000 in benefits and spent it on luxury items while denying their daughter medical care. We have 847 pages of financial records, 47 FBI wiretap recordings, and an 87-page victim deposition. When confronted, they attempted to coerce the victim into signing a waiver of prosecution rights. They are a danger to the witness and a flight risk. Judge Hendricks didn't hesitate. Bail denied. Defendants remanded to federal custody pending trial. Over the next 48 hours, something happened that I didn't expect. My parents' lawyers reviewed all the evidence, every bank statement, every wiretap recording, every page of my testimony, and they realized they couldn't win this case. On March 5th, the defense attorney filed a motion. Change of plea. My parents were going to plead guilty. March 5th, 2 p.m. plea hearing. My parents stood before Judge Hendricks. The courtroom was silent. Mr. Holloway, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are admitting you committed these crimes? My father's voice was quiet. Yes. Please tell the court, in your own words, what you did. He looked at the floor. We falsified our daughter's disability diagnosis in order to receive SSI benefits we weren't entitled to. For how long? 16 years. How much money did you receive fraudulently? $936,000. Judge Hendricks turned to my mother. Mrs. Holloway, you're the child's mother. Tell me why you did this. My mother was crying. We needed the money. We lost our jobs and we just needed it. So you stole it from your daughter? No answer. Between March 6th and March 12th, the Federal Probation Office prepared a pre-sentencing report. They interviewed me. They interviewed Arthur. They interviewed Dr. Cartwright. They reviewed the medical records, the evidence, everything. The report was 34 pages long. Section 4, Victim Impact, recommended an upward variance from the sentencing guidelines. Given the severity of abuse, duration of fraud, and lack of genuine remorse, recommend 144 months incarceration for each defendant. 12 years. March 15th, 2026. Sentencing hearing. The courtroom was even more packed than before. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The prosecutor stood first. Your Honor, these defendants didn't just steal money. They stole their daughter's childhood. For 16 years they imprisoned her, isolated her, drugged her before evaluations, and denied her medical care, all to perpetuate a fraud that enriched them while she suffered. When she turned 18 and the scheme was about to collapse, they abandoned her at an airport and called her a worthless burden. This is not a case of desperation. This is systematic, calculated exploitation of a child for profit. The defense tried to argue for leniency, financial desperation, no prior record. They provided food and shelter. Judge Hendricks cut them off. Counselor, they spent $87,000 on European vacations while their daughter ate canned soup and lived with a broken arm. That's not desperation. That's greed. Then the judge looked at me. Before I impose sentence, I'll hear from the victim. Miss Murray, please approach the podium. I stood up, walked to the front of the courtroom. I'd written out what I wanted to say. Dr. Cartwright had helped me organize my thoughts. But standing there, looking at my parents in their orange jumpsuits, I didn't need the notes. I spoke from memory, from the heart. For 16 years, I believed I was broken. I believed something was fundamentally wrong with me. My parents told the world I was severely disabled, intellectually impaired, barely human. They told me if anyone found out I could read, could think, could learn, that I would be taken away and institutionalized. I was 8 years old. I believed them. I kept going, my voice steady. So I hid. I hid my intelligence. I hid my questions. I taught myself to read in secret at midnight. I taught myself Spanish from TV because I had no one to talk to. When I broke my arm and needed surgery, they said no. Not because they couldn't afford it, but because healthy bones would prove I was faking a disability I never had in the first place. I lived in pain for 8 years with a deformed arm because the truth was more dangerous to them than my suffering. I looked directly at my mother. On my 18th birthday, they woke me at 5 a.m., drove me to an airport, and handed me a ticket. My mother looked me in the eyes and said, "You worthless burden. Don't ever come back. We're finally free of you." They drove away laughing. It was my birthday. My voice didn't shake. I stood alone at the airport with a backpack and no idea where I was going. That's what I was worth to them. Nothing. They collected $936,000 meant for my care and spent it on themselves. They stole my childhood. They stole my education. They stole my sense of safety and my sense of self. I paused. But they didn't break me. I'm not disabled. I never was. I'm Melba Murray. I taught myself 3 languages. I have an IQ of 138. And I'm going to MIT in the fall. They wanted me to be silent. I looked at the judge. I'm done being silent. The courtroom was completely quiet. Several people in the gallery were crying. My mother was sobbing in her seat. My father stared at the table. Judge Hendricks took off her glasses, wiped her eyes. She waited a full minute before speaking. I have presided over federal cases for 19 years. I have seen fraud. I have seen child abuse. I have seen exploitation. But I have never seen a case where parents weaponized a fake disability against their own child for 16 years. She looked at my parents. Mr. Holloway and Mrs. Holloway, you are each sentenced to 144 months, 12 years in federal prison. You will serve a minimum of 85%, which is 10 years and 2 months. You will pay full restitution of $936,000 plus penalties and interest. You will have no contact with the victim for the duration of your natural lives unless she initiates it. Her voice was hard. You exploited your daughter, you defrauded the government, and you showed no genuine remorse until you were caught. You do not deserve leniency. You deserve accountability. She struck the gavel. This court is adjourned. U.S. Marshals came forward with handcuffs. My mother was still crying. My father's face was blank. I stood up, walked out of the courtroom with Arthur. I didn't look back. Reporters shouted questions as we left. I kept walking. Outside, Arthur put his hand on my shoulder. "You did it," he said. "You told the truth." And they listened. "It's really over? It's really over." I took a deep breath of Charleston air. March 15th, 2026. The first day of the rest of my life. The next morning, I woke up in my bedroom at Arthur's house. My room. Not a prison. Not a locked door. Just a bedroom with a window, a bookshelf, a desk, and a view of the marsh. Arthur was making breakfast when I came downstairs. "How'd you sleep?" "Without nightmares," I said. "First time in, I can't remember how long. You're safe now. You can stay here as long as you want. Forever if you'd like." I sat down at the kitchen table. "I've never had a real home before." "You do now." There was a knock at the door. FedEx delivery. Arthur brought in a large envelope. MIT logo in the corner. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was an acceptance letter. "Dear Ms. Murray, on behalf of MIT, I am pleased to offer you admission to our undergraduate program in Brain and Cognitive Sciences with a full presidential scholarship covering tuition, room, board, and a living stipend of $85,000 per year, renewable for 4 years." I read it out loud, my voice breaking. "Your story of resilience and self-directed learning is extraordinary. We would be honored to support your educational journey. Welcome to MIT." I looked up at Arthur. "They want me. MIT wants me." He was smiling. You did this. You taught yourself everything they tried to deny you. You earned this. I stared at the letter. Full scholarship. Brain and Cognitive Sciences. Start date. August 25th, 2026. I was going to study how people survive trauma, how the brain adapts, how children learn despite impossible circumstances. I was going to turn what happened to me into something that could help other people. On March 18th, I had my first appointment with an orthopedic surgeon. Dr. Patterson examined my left arm, the one that had healed wrong 8 years ago. The fracture healed incorrectly because it wasn't surgically fixed, he said. We can re-break the bone, realign it with titanium plates, and restore about 90% function. You'll need 2 surgeries and 6 months of physical therapy. Will it hurt? Yes. But you'll be able to fully extend your arm again. I looked at my crooked arm. The permanent reminder of what my parents had done. I want to do it, I said. This was supposed to prove I was disabled. Instead, it's going to prove I survived. Surgery was scheduled for June 12th. I'd heal over the summer. By the time I started at MIT, my arm would be straight for the first time in 8 years. March 20th. A letter arrived from Charleston County Detention Center. The return address said, Brenda Holloway, inmate number 2026-04728. I stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Inside was a handwritten letter. Dear Melba, I am so sorry for everything I put you through. I was weak and scared, and I made terrible choices. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm asking for it anyway. You're my daughter, and I love you. Can you please visit me? I want to make things right. Love, Mom. I read it twice. I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. Arthur saw me holding the letter. You don't have to respond. You don't owe her anything. I know. March 22nd. I started therapy with Dr. Cartwright. We'd have weekly sessions in person while I was in Beaufort, then video sessions when I went to MIT. The first session, she explained complex PTSD to me. How prolonged trauma, especially in childhood, affects the brain. How isolation affects development. How I'd have good days and hard days. Eat, Melba. You're going to hear a lot of people tell you that you need to forgive your parents to heal. I want you to know, that's not true. Forgiveness is a choice, not an obligation, and healing doesn't require reconciliation. I thought good people always forgive. Good people also protect themselves. You can release your anger without giving them access to your life. I sat with that for a while. Is it okay if I never want to see them again? It's more than okay. It's your right. They don't get to hurt you for 16 years and then demand forgiveness on their timeline. March 24th. I wrote a response to my mother's letter. I kept it short, clear, final. I received your letter. I'm not ready to forgive you. I may never be ready. What you did to me wasn't a mistake. It was a choice you made every single day for 16 years. You locked me in a room. You drugged me. You denied me medical care. You called me a worthless burden and abandoned me laughing. You stole $936,000 meant for my care and spent it on yourselves. I don't owe you forgiveness. I don't owe you a visit. I don't owe you anything. I'm building a life now, a real life, with people who actually love me. You're not part of that life. Please don't write to me again. Melba Murray. I sealed the envelope, walked to the mailbox, dropped it in, didn't look back. March 25th. Sunday dinner. Arthur cooked. He'd invited Dr. Cartwright and Agent Stoltz, who'd become friends through the case. We sat around the table, the 4 of us, and for the first time in my life, I understood what family was supposed to feel like. Not blood, not obligation, choice. Arthur raised his glass. To Melba, the bravest person I know. Dr. Cartwright smiled. To Melba, my smartest patient and my proudest success story. Agent Stoltz nodded. To Melba, the witness who took down 2 federal criminals and didn't blink. I looked at each of them. Tears in my eyes, but good tears this time. To the family I chose. Thank you for choosing me back. After dinner, Arthur and I sat on the porch. Rocking chairs, marsh sounds, sunset over the water. Your mom called me again today, Arthur said. Wants me to convince you to visit. And what did you say? I told her no. I told her you're healing and she doesn't get to interrupt that. Thank you. But Melba, he looked at me. If you ever do want to see her, or talk to her, or forgive her, that's your choice. I'll support whatever you need. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Right now, I said, I need to choose myself. For the first time in my life, I get to choose myself. Then that's what you do. We sat in silence for a while. Comfortable silence. Can I ask you something? I said. Anything? Why didn't you give up? 14 years. You could have moved on. Arthur looked out at the marsh. Because you're my granddaughter. And love doesn't give up. People keep asking me if I forgive my parents. I tell them, forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. Maybe someday I'll forgive them. Maybe I'll release the anger, stop letting them live rent-free in my head. But that doesn't mean I have to let them back into my life. They wanted me to be disabled. They wanted me to be dependent. They wanted me to be silent. I'm none of those things. I taught myself to read while they were sleeping. I learned 3 languages from TV and old textbooks. I survived 16 years of isolation and came out with an IQ in the 99th percentile. They tried to break me. I'm not broken. They tried to silence me. I testified against them in federal court. They called me worthless. MIT gave me a full scholarship. I'm Melba Murray. I'm 18 years old. I'm going to study neuroscience. I'm going to understand how people survive trauma. And maybe one day I'll help other kids who are living the life I lived. My parents are in prison. My grandfather found me. My arm will be healed by summer. And I finally get to write my own ending. I'm sitting at my desk in my room right now. The window is open. Fresh air. Birds singing. The calendar on my wall has 3 dates circled. June 12th, surgery. August 25th, MIT orientation. September 1st, new life. There's a journal on my desk. The old one. The one I kept for 6 years, documenting everything, titled Evidence, is closed now. Finished. I open a new journal. Clean pages. Unlimited possibility. I write on the first page. Beginning. This is my story. For the first time, I get to choose what happens next.